Thank you. Good evening, students. How are you doing today? So we'll be starting another new chapter today, and we'll be proceeding with charge in GST. So this will be an easy sail through for us because we have learned what is supply. So supply is the main important aspect, and we have learned that. So we will have to apply that in the charge provision. So that's very simple now. So I think this will be very easy for you, even though. So most of you all had queries on what is reverse charge, what are these talking, because every time I used to discuss on reverse charge, there were apprehensions that what is reverse charge. So that will get clarified in this chapter, what is reverse charge. So before we get into the chapter, there is some students who have read through our previous things and they have come up with some questions. So Mr. Ishan Bish has asked, please explain del credere agent, tenancy, and bus bodybuilding. So what is a del credere agent and what is tenancy and bus bodybuilding, right? So these were the important aspects which were covered under circular. So the same confusion what you had, Ishan, where the confusions which was there amongst the trade. And that's why this circular had come in clarifying what is a del credere agent and what happens in that case. So a del credere agent is a special agent, right? Special agent, so special charges. So he's an agent who says that apart from being an intermediary between the seller and buyer, I will take my commission for being an agent, but I will also ensure to the seller that you get your money back. Okay. So he will ensure that you get the money from the buyer. So for that, he will charge you some extra commission, which you're ready to buy because ready to pay him. Because in that case, what happens? You're assured that yes, your customer will pay you. Now, if the customer doesn't pay, this del credere agent has to pay. So will he pay? How will he pay? He will facilitate to the buyer saying that, boss, I have agreed that I will pay to the seller. So if I pay, then I have to collect from you as recovery. I have to file a case against you and get the money from you. So I'll do one thing. I will give you a loan. You pay that amount to the seller so that my commission is intact and your transaction with him is also clear and I will not disturb you. You pay me interest for this part. Okay, so that's the main crux of a del credere agent. Now I'll just share the screen on what happens and what is the circular on this del credere agent. Yeah. So this is the aspect on del credere agent. Generally, Schedule 3 says, Schedule 1, Part 3 says any transaction between principal and agent is without any consideration also is liable to GST. So whether del credere agent will fall under Para 3 of Schedule 1 is the question. So first is it will be decided based on the discussion in circular number 57. What is circular number 57? We have discussed here is where the invoice for the supply is being issued in the name of agent in his own name. Then it will fall under Para 3 of Schedule 1 and it will form as a supply, which means invoice for the supply is being issued by the agent in his own name. So he's buying goods from the principal and he's selling in his own name, right? So where the ownership comes to the agent, that's when he can sell it in his own name. So ownership comes to the agent and he's selling it. That's way it will be liable to GST. But where the invoice is issued by the agent to the customer in the name of principal itself, right? So then he's not acting independently. He's a dependent of the principal. In that case, it does not fall under Para 3, so it's not a supply. Third instance, where the goods procured by the agent on behalf of the principal are invoiced in the name of agent. He's buying goods. Now the supplier will raise invoice in the name of agent, not in the name of principal. Then he is independently buying it and then he is selling it to the principal. In that case, it will still fall under Para 3 and it will be a supply. Okay, but if the seller invoices in the name of principal and he takes the goods on behalf of the principal, then it is not a supply. Clear? Now, how do you apply this in del credere agent? They've said that del credere agent, you will charge interest and other things. So there's a little variance. So the first aspect is whether interest charged by the del credere agent for short-term loan is to be included in the value of supply by the principal when del credere agent is not an agent under Para 3. So if he's not an agent under para 3, okay, it's clearly given that when based on the facts, you have to first decide. So first is you have to decide whether del credere agent will fall under para 3. You have decided based on discussion in circular 3, and you have come to the conclusion that he is not an agent. He is not acting. He's not an agent under para 3. Okay, it means he is acting independently. Okay, he's acting on behalf of the supplier. Okay, he's acting on behalf of the supplier. So whether interest charge will form part of the whether del credere agent, okay, whether interest charged by the del credere agent for short-term loan is to be included in the value of supply by the principal? No. Why? There are three aspects to this. First is there is supply of goods by the principal to the recipient, seller with the buyer. So principal is selling to the buyer. The agency service by the del credere agent is to the seller or buyer. That's the second transaction. Third is loan service is given by the del credere agent to the buyer. So principal and this supply is not connected. So there are three transactions. One is supply of goods by the seller to the buyer. Second transaction is the agent, del credere agent will collect his commission. And third is he is giving loan to the buyer. That's why he will charge his interest to the buyer and he will collect money from that. In second, the next instance is where del credere is an agent under para 3 and makes payment on behalf of the buyer. So in this arrangement, the buyer is not able to pay. The del credere agent will directly pay to the seller and he will tell that charge interest. So the complete facts are where del credere agent is an agent under para 3 and makes payment on behalf of the buyer and charges interest to the buyer. Will supply value have to be increased? We have understood this composite supply. So this supply is inclusive of the interest. So will this interest have to be included? Yes, it has to be included because there are four supplies here. Supply of goods by the principal to the del credere agent. So it is not to the recipient because he is acting as a principal to principal basis. So the goods are being sold to the del credere agent. Then supply of goods by the del credere agent to the buyer. Agency service is also charged. Agency service by the del credere agent to the seller or buyer because he's connected both of them. And loan service by the del credere agent to the buyer. So there are four transactions in this case. Clear with this? Okay. The next aspect was tenancy rights. Okay. So tenancy right, we discussed that there is something called as a pagdi right because apart from these 4 to 5 rights, only one right is given away by the owner. So owner is saying that, okay, I'll still retain the ownership, but I will give you the right to collect the tenants rent from the tenants. So this is giving away of the tenancy right. So in case of tenancy right, what happens? There is activity of transfer of tenancy right against consideration is supply of service. But this is supply of what? This is supply of renting. Renting is exempted because we know renting of residential property is exempted. So will this tenancy rights also be exempted is what they're saying, but no. However, grant of tenancy right in residential dwelling is exempt. Okay, but tenancy right, so collecting rent is exempt, but surrendering the tenancy right for consideration is liable to GST because I'm giving away him the right. I'm not giving away the property and collecting rent. So giving away of the property and collecting rent is different, and giving away this right of collecting is different. So there are two different things. So giving away this right is taxable, and giving away the rent and collecting the rent is exempted. That is what was on tenancy rights. Then on bus bodybuilding. So bus bodybuilding, what did we say? We discussed that in case of a bus bodybuilding, what happens? That there is a chassis is given and a compartment is fitted on it. So if I give a chassis and I tell the other person, boss, compartment also I will buy, you have to only do the fitting services. Then it's a purely service contract. So that will be treated as a service agreement. The job work will be of a service level. When I give the chassis in the second instance and I tell him you have to procure goods and install on it, then he is not only fitting, he is buying that compartment and then giving it to me. So it becomes a supply of goods contract because there the preliminary objective is the compartment. So that's why it's a compartment service. He will charge the rate, and that service becomes an ancillary thing, because if he buys the compartment, then he has to fit it. So that will become a kind of main contract that become again a composite supply, wherein the main supply is supplying of the compartment and fitting this service charge of other labor charge is ancillary to it. So he will charge the rate what is applicable for the compartment. Clear on this? Why residential is exempted? In exemptions, we'll see that renting of commercial properties is taxable, but renting of residential is exempted because government doesn't want to charge GST on rental of residential purposes. That's why they have kept it under exemption for now. Sir, in joint development apartment construction, what is GST implication on landowner of that project? We will get to know on the thing. There is one specific mention in the charge topic. We'll discuss that. Wish. Can you please explain printing of books composite supply concept? Okay, so when a printing of book happens, what happens? I supply, 1 minute, there is this clarification. Okay, so printing of books, what happens? Printing of books I will do, right? Printing of books, I am the printer. Now I'm getting the content from the publisher, because who is holding the content? The publisher is holding it. Now he comes to me and he says that print books for me. Should I do something? Of course, material and all is there, but he's not coming to me for material. He's coming to me for the service of printing of this content. So it's a supply of service. Okay, so it is the main objective is supply of service. So I have to charge him GST on services and not GST applicable on the books. Okay, because I'm giving him the printing service. Fine. Second is where the printed envelopes, letter cards, napkins, or any stationery is being printed. There it is supply of goods, because even though there is logo which is I'm affixing on it, but that's not a major component. That's a minor component. So predominantly I'm supplying these materials to him. That's why it's a supply of goods contract. Mr. Suman, your question is explain non-supplies interstate movement of various modes of conveyance. We have discussed this. So various modes of conveyance which is being supplied from one state to another state. Okay, because within the state it is not taxable. With the interstate also, if it is moving, then also it is not taxable, is what the provision saying, because the conveyance is being moved not for the purpose of sale. If it is for the purpose of sale, right? Like I'm giving an empty conveyance, I'm transferring from one place to another place, and he will sell it from there, from the other state. Then it is a supply of goods, supply of that conveyance. But this conveyance is used to fly passengers from one place to another, or to transport goods from one place to another place. Then it is not treated as sale. That will be treated as exempted, because this only becomes a channel for moving. So that conveyance per se is not being sold. So can you explain that how GST denotes VAT's comprehensiveness? So in VAT, we had this case under the old law wherein all the goods were liable to VAT and input tax credit was availed. So here also we are availing the input tax credit. There it was only limited to buyer. Seller of goods can claim credit of buying of goods. Here it is expanded. So this basic concept of input tax credit and those structures are still continuing here. Can you please explain once again importation of service? We'll discuss this today in charge subject. Great. So all your queries are fixed. So can you please explain charge of price under mixed supplies? Yeah. What is the rate of tax? Not charge of price, so rate of tax. So when I supply a mixed supply of 2-3 components, the GST rate, which is highest among this mixed products, will apply on the whole supply. Okay, so we had given an example of a tie, belt, and shoes. Okay, if this is in one bundle together, and say shoes are at 5%, tie is at 12%, and belt is at 18%. If you're supplying this as a mixed supply, as a bundle supply, then what is the highest rate? 18%. So 18% will apply on this complete supply. Okay. Great. So can we go into the today's topic? So we'll discuss on charge. Okay. What is charge under GST? The power to levy tax is called charge. Like we had read under Constitution that there should be a power, there should be clear definition of what is you're trying to collect tax on. In income tax, you're trying to collect tax on the income. Under customs, you're collecting tax on imports. Similarly, under excise, you're collecting tax on manufacturer. In capital gains, under income tax, you're collecting when there is a transfer of asset, right? So there is a specific mention, I would call it as a trigger point, which is the meaning of charge. So what is the basis for any levy is called as charge. So the power to levy tax is drawn from the Constitution. Hence the Constitution 101st Amendment Act was passed because there needs to be a provision which clearly says that yes, CGST can be collected, SGST can be collected, or the, if not the specific words being used, saying that okay, whenever there is a supply, both center and state can collect tax, was the charging section under the Constitution which was missing. So this 101st Amendment Act brought in this, and that's how the power to collect GST is available in the Constitution. So the basis for any charge is the taxable event in any statute. Okay, so what is the taxable event is important. Now, there are 4 things which are relevant for any taxing thing. So there should be 4 things for any charge to satisfy that it is valid. So the 4 pillars of taxation that together constitute the cornerstone for levy are all couched in section 9.1. So when we see 9.1, we'll see that there are 4 components, right? These 4 components are there in any law, any act. If these 4 components is there, then the charge is to be treated as valid. In GST, what is the charge basis? The taxable event or the charge event in GST is supply, right? If there is a supply, then there is GST. If there is no supply, then there is no GST. Even after supply is there, then we have to go to Schedule 1, Schedule 3, then exemptions. Then we have to determine whether finally tax is payable or no. Okay, so the taxable event in GST is supply. Now, when we say taxable event, just supply is one component. Is it sufficient? No. So what are the 4 things which are relevant? The taxable event, okay, the taxable event, the tax rate. You can note this down. There are 4 aspects in any charge. Okay, the charge should satisfy these 4 conditions. One is the taxable event. Second is the tax rate. Third is collection or levy. And 4th is the person who will pay it. Okay, so 4 things I'll repeat: the taxable event, the tax rate, the collection or levy, and the person who will pay it. Okay, so in GST, the taxable event is what? Supply. So once there is supply, tax is triggered. Tax rate is given where? In section 9, we'll see that the power is given to on the who can decide the tax rate. Then collection. How will the taxes be collected? That has to be also be defined. So 9 gives that mechanism that how tax will be collected. Like I cannot say that on supply tax is collected at 10%, but 10% or whatever 18% on what you will collect it is called as the levy provision. So 9 gives the levy provision and the person to pay. So 9 also says that who will pay. Some cases it says forward charge and some cases it says reverse charge. Matlab, in some cases I will say I am the seller, I have to pay. In some cases, the receiver has to pay. So it is clearly demarcated. So that is clearly mentioned in 9. Okay. Okay. So charging is what is important. Now, charge levy is the taxable event, or the charge component is supply under GST. What is the various types of GST? Let us understand. First is CGST. We know what the CGST stands for, Central Goods and Service Tax. This is applicable on supplies within the state, right? Similarly with SGST. So when you make an intrastate supply, CGST and SGST is charged. CGST goes to the center, SGST goes to the respective state. In terms of union territory, we know that a union territory with legislature also will be treated as a state, right? And union territory without legislature will have its own union territory GST law. Okay, union territory ST law, union territory goods and service tax law. And IGST stands for integrated GST. So when it is applicable in case of two instances, when in case of any interstate supply. Interstate supply means interstate movement of goods or interstate supply of services, and on import transactions. So on all import transactions, IGST is applicable. Then the tax collected in IGST, does it go to the center alone? No, it goes to the center and state. After apportionment, after giving away the credit, like moving off the credit from one state to another state, whatever is left out is settled between the center and the state. Okay. When do you treat a local supply of goods or services, right? So to understand this, we have to understand that what is state, right? State, the definition under state under GST itself says that state under GST law is defined to include a union territory with legislature. So like Delhi, Pondicherry, and Jammu and Kashmir are union territories. They have their own legislature on their own. So for the purpose of GST law, the union territories of Delhi, Pondicherry, and Jammu and Kashmir will be regarded as a state and will be covered by their respective SGST laws. So when do you treat a local supply of GST, which means local supply means what? Intrastate supply. This is a supplier when the supplier, okay, location of the supplier. There are two words which are important here. The location of the supplier and the place of supply. So these two things are important. This is the location of the supplier and this is the place of supply. If the location of the supplier and place of supply are both in the same state, okay, when the location of the supplier and place of supply are in the same state, it is a intrastate supply. On intrastate supply, what do you charge? CGST and SGST. Keep your basics clear. Then what happens in case the location of the supplier is in one state and the place of supply are in different state? So when the location of the supplier and place of supply are in two different states, then it is a interstate supply. In case of interstate supply, we charge IGST. Clear? Now, extent of GST. So before we get into the actual section of 9, there are important terms which we need to understand, which we will discuss now. So what is the extent of GST? Extent GST goes up to what? GST law under section 1 says that GST extends to the whole of India. Whole of India. India is defined under section 2 subsection 56. The definition of India is given under the GST law, which says that it extends. It is the territory of India as referred to in Article 1 of the Constitution. Fine, territory of India. India means the territory of India. It's territorial waters. Okay, it's territorial water, which means there is some limit beyond the borders, of India, which is called as a territorial waters. So the territorial waters, seabed and subsoil underlying such waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zones, or any other maritime zone as referred to in, there is a law, there's an act which is called as territorial waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone, and other maritime zones. and the airspace above its territory and territorial waters. It means what? India is the territory of India. The general borders, what we see, everything within the borders is definitely India. Then there is something called as territorial waters. Up to that territorial waters is also India, right? That's why you see that there is some oil exploration happening at Bombay High, right? It is in the sea. Now, does it belong to India or somebody else? Or does it belong to any other country? It still belongs to India because it is within the territorial waters of India itself. So India doesn't mean just the land base. It also includes the water base up to some limits. So what is that limit? It is given in this territorial waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zones, and other maritime zones. What does that say? Let's understand that first. So India says the territorial waters is the territorial sea, which is 12 nautical miles from the baseline. So if this is the baseline, from here up to 12 nautical miles is the territorial sea. Then the exclusive economic zone says up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline, which means from 12 nautical miles and then up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline. Then 12 plus 12 is first contiguous zone, and then exclusive economic zones. After that, so up till the 200 nautical miles from the baseline is exclusive economic zone, which is India. Anything beyond this is high seas. High seas means which is not within the purview of India, right? So the definition of India, if you see, it is the land base plus territorial sea plus exclusive economic zone. And then what? Not just that. It also includes the airspace above and the below the territorial waters also is India. So that foreign drones just cannot enter to the air and say, no, we have not entered India. It will still be grounded. On what basis? Because any air above this exclusive economic zone is also belonging to India. So foreign airships, if they're entering this place, then they need to take a permission. Okay. So the GST law says that India covers everything. It includes Jammu and Kashmir also, and the 200 nautical miles plus the airspace above and below. The CGST Act extends to the whole of India. To what extent that the state GST law extend? The state GST law extend to the whole of that state. If there is a Gujarat sales tax, Gujarat GST law, then it extends to the whole of Gujarat. Then state also includes a union territory. So we have discussed that 3 union territories having with legislature are also included. So they are also treated as state for the purpose of GST law. UT GST law extends to the union territories of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So which are all the union territories which are without their own legislature? They are Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, this is 1 union territory, Ladakh and Chandigarh. So there are 5 union territories without legislature and 3 union territories with legislature. So Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu and Nagar Haveli, okay, Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, Ladakh and Chandigarh. So these 5 union territories are not having their own legislature, though. So for these union territories, the UT GST law will apply. Sir, are both Jammu and Kashmir considered as state or only Jammu is under GST? So only Jammu is considered, Jammu and Kashmir. Both are 1 union territory and Ladakh is a separate union territory. So Jammu and Kashmir is treated as a union territory with legislature and Ladakh is treated as a union territory without legislature. What is the exclusive economic zone? Is it an area under the sea where we allowed to do any business like mining, etc.? Correct. So up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline is treated as an exclusive economic zone. Now, coming to section 9. So what is section 9 and when is it applicable? Section 9 is applicable, says that subject to the provisions of subsection 2. So the section itself starts by subject to the provisions of subsection 2, which means to trigger 9, you have to go to subsection 2, get it filtered, and then come to section 1. Okay, so we will first read section 1, then we'll go to subsection 2. First is, it says that subject to the provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax. So this is a levy provision. There shall be levied a tax. So it is giving clarity that there is a levy. Where is the levy? Levy is coming under 9. That's why they're saying that there shall be levied a tax called the central goods and service tax on what? On all intrastate supplies, right? So the first aspect is on what it will be levied. It will be levied on any intrastate supplies, which means we know where the location of the supplier and place of supply are in the same state, then it is called as intrastate supplies. So it will levied on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both, except on for human consumption. So any alcoholic for liquor for human consumption is outside the purview of GST. Why? Because it is under the purview of state excise and state VAT, right? So once the government decides that they have to bring it under GST, then that levy goes off and it will be coming into GST. Okay, but as of now, there is no GST on alcoholic liquor for human consumptions. Now, okay, I will pay interstate supply. On what should I pay? That's why the next paragraph says that on the value which is determined under section 15. So you have to determine the value under section 15, which is saying the what will be the value. So you have to pay GST except on all intrastate supplies, except on supply of alcoholic liquor consumption on the value which is determined under section 5, and at such rates. Okay, at such rates means what? I am not giving you the rate. At such rates, not exceeding 20%, as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. So who will give the rate? GST Act is not giving you the rate. The GST rate is saying that I will empower somebody. Who is that somebody? I will empower the government by notification on the recommendation of the council, who will give a notification and give the rate. So 9 says, I will give the power. Now, don't come to me for rate. For rates, you go to the notification. So it will be levied at such rates not exceeding 20%, which means what? GST rate cannot exceed 20%. Sir, but we have 28% GST rate. Yes, that 28% is split as 14% CGST, 14% SGST. So the maximum rate under GST is 20%. Maximum rate under SGST is 20%. So the 20 plus 20 can be 40%. The rate of GST cannot go beyond 40%. But this excludes cess, because cess is an additional levy. So basic CGST and SGST, whatever we see, that cannot exceed 20% each. Now, at such rates, not exceeding 20%, as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council, and is collected in such manner as may be prescribed, which means they shall be collected in such manner. Now, how is that collected in such manner? That is collected through the returns. So you declare the value in your returns, and there you collect it. So it says that collected in such manner as may be prescribed. And it says as may be prescribed, it means it will be prescribed in the rules. So for how it is collected will be defined in the GST rules. And collected in such manner as may be prescribed, and shall be paid by whom? Shall be paid by the taxable person, which means who is supplying, he is the taxable person. Okay, so the person who is registered or required to be registered is called as a taxable person under GST. So he will collect the tax on his outward supply. That is section 1, 9 subsection 1. Then 9.2 says the central tax on supply of petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, which is commonly called as petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel shall be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by the government. So first is under 9.1, we saw that there is one exclusion. But there is a permanent exclusion, because there it didn't say that we will notify from a future date. It is permanent, kind of permanent exclusion. If you have to remove it, then you have to change the law itself. The under 9.1, what is the exclusion? Alcoholic for liquor for human consumption is excluded. Then 9.2, what is excluded? 5 products, petroleum products, basically petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel. These 5 items are not there in GST now. It will come into effect from a future date as may be notified. Sir, then this, what do you mean? GST is there or not there on these products? On these products, it is not there. Why it is not there? Because these are high revenue generating items for the state. So the state government said that we will not let the central government levy GST on this. So we will keep it outside the GST purview itself. So please don't levy GST on it. That's why they included this provision in 9 itself, saying that on these petroleum products, there will not be GST. We will levy GST at a future date on it. So that future date, we are seeing that from 2017 till now, it has not come. So it may come up sometime in the future. Okay. So on these 5 petroleum products, no GST. That's when 9.1 says subject to 9.2, which means 9.2 is specifically saying you read the GST law, but for these 5 products, don't touch the GST law. Don't consider charging GST on these 5 products until the government gives a notification to include us. Okay, so on these 5 products, no GST. Subject to that, on all intrastate supplies, GST is applicable, except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. On what value? Value which is determined at 15%. On what rate? No rates will be prescribed. Okay, and how will it be collected? Collection also will be prescribed and shall be paid by the taxable person. Okay, so 9, whatever I've spoken, I've made you understand in English. I'll explain in Hindi. 9 क्या बोलता है? 9 बताता है कि किसके ऊपर, क्या बेसिस पे, कितने रेट पे और कौन जीएसटी पे करेगा. ठीक है, तो ये बताने के लिए सेक्शन 9 बहुत जरूरी है. प्रोविजन बहुत जरूरी है जो बताएगा कि किसके ऊपर कौन जीएसटी भरेगा. तो 9 बताता है देयर शैल बी लेविड अ टैक्स कॉल्ड सेंट्रल गुड्स एंड सर्विस टैक्स ऑन इंट्रास्टेट सप्लाई. मतलब जो भी इंट्रास्टेट सप्लाई करेगा उसके ऊपर मैं सीजीएसटी लगाऊंगा, लेकिन किसके ऊपर नहीं लगाऊंगा? अल्कोहलिक लिकर पे नहीं लगाऊंगा. ठीक है, एंड क्या वैल्यू पे लगाऊंगा? वैल्यू के लिए आप सेक्शन 15 पे जाइए. 15 क्या बताता है? 15 बताता है कि आप अगर आप ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू कर रहे हो, अनरिलेटेड पार्टी के साथ डील कर रहे हो, तो जो भी आप वैल्यू बताएंगे, जो आप वैल्यू सामने वाले से कलेक्ट करोगे, वो वैल्यू ही ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू है. लेकिन अगर आप कोई रिलेटेड पार्टी के साथ कर रहे हो या कुछ और कारण से आप कर रहे हो, चेंजेस हो रहे हैं प्राइस, तब मेरे को वैल्यूएशन रूल जाना पड़ेगा, वो विच इज वो सेक्शन 15 बताएगा. ठीक है, लेकिन बेसिकली क्या करते हैं हम लोग? हर बार वैल्यूएशन पे नहीं जाते, बिकॉज इफ आई एम सेलिंग सम गुड्स टू एन अनरिलेटेड पार्टी, तो फिर मैं जो वैल्यू चार्ज करता हूँ वही मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू है. ऐसा नहीं कि गवर्नमेंट फिक्स कर देता है रेट एक प्रोडक्ट का. ये गवर्नमेंट फिक्स नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट हर जगह पे नहीं जा सकता है. गवर्नमेंट बोलता है कि मैं रूल्स बताऊंगा आपको. अगर आप किसी अनरिलेटेड पार्टी के साथ डील कर रहे हो और आप अगर उससे पूरा वैल्यू कलेक्ट कर रहे हो, तो फिर आपको वही वैल्यू कलेक्ट कंसिडर करना है जीएसटी के लिए. लेकिन अब जब रिलेटेड पार्टी के साथ करोगे, तब मेरे को थोड़ा प्राइस एडजस्टमेंट करेगा, वो सेक्शन 15 बताता है. ठीक है, एंड कितने रेट पे? एट सच रेट नॉट एक्सीडिंग 20%, 20% सीजीएसटी के ऊपर, 20% एसजीएसटी के ऊपर. तो 20 + 20 40% का कैपिंग आ गया. 40% के ऊपर जीएसटी रेट नहीं लग सकता है. ठीक है, तो आज मैक्सिमम कैपिंग क्या हो गई है? 40 हो गए. एक्चुअल में कितना है मैक्सिमम? 28%, मतलब 14 और 14. गवर्नमेंट के पास कितना पावर है? और 16% बढ़ाने का पावर है. तो नोटिफाई हो जाएगा. क्या हो जाएगा? रेट्स नोटिफाई हो जाएगा ऑन द रिकमेंडेशन ऑफ द काउंसिल. कैसे कलेक्ट करेंगे? कलेक्टेड इन सच मैनर एज मे बी प्रिस्क्राइब. मतलब रूल्स बताएंगे आपको कि क्या टैक्स कैसे कलेक्ट करना है. लेकिन पे कौन करेगा? 9.1 में कौन टैक्स पे करेगा? सप्लायर ही पे करेगा. मतलब सभी सिनारियोज में सप्लायर ही पे करेगा. दैट इज 9.1. देन हम जाते हैं 9.2. समझ लिए, 9.2 बताता है कि 5 पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट के ऊपर आपको जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा. Sir, but there are other taxes also that are not included in GST. For example, countervailing service tax, entertainment tax, other than those levied by local bodies, yes, they are not included in GST. So they are left out. So not everything has to be included. It's all subsumed. So whatever earlier taxes were there, they've given a last breath on 30th June 2017. So those are not there. Now it is there at all in their part of the GST itself. What is high speed diesel? Basically diesel को high speed diesel बताते हैं. Sir, but 9.1 talks only about one exemption. There are other exemptions like countervailing service tax. No, those were not levied at all. So those were levied under the respective laws, wherein that has been gone. So those, once the GST came in, there was a change in the law itself. So Constitution also said that, okay, this law is coming, so We'll call this as the law, and all of the following taxes will not be applicable. So they gave up with the list, and that's how all the previous VAT, service tax, countervailing duty, entertainment tax, all of that is not levied because those were given a stoppage saying that this law will not be valid. That's all. So that's why those taxes are not being collected. 20% is for related party? No, 20% is the capping, saying that maximum government has the power to levy tax up to 20 plus 20, 40%. Sir, on alcoholic liquor, GST is 20% each, and can government increase the limit up to such limit? No, on alcoholic liquor, there is no limit. On alcoholic liquor, there is no 20%, nothing like that, because alcoholic liquor will be levied by the VAT authorities and the state excise authorities itself. Okay, so that is 9.1 and 9. Now we will see 9.3. What does 9.3 say? 9.3 says simply that the government may, on the recommendation of the council. Why every time you have recommendation of the council? Because the council, GST council, is given that much power, saying that whatever changes you want to make, you have to go to the GST council. Okay, so the government may, on the recommendation of the council, by notification, specify the categories of supply of goods or services or both, the tax on which will be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient of such goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person who is liable for paying the tax in relation to supply of those goods or services or both. Okay, so 9.1 ने क्या कहा? 9.1 ने हमको बताया कि ठीक है भैया, there is a supply, so on your supply it will be paid by the taxable person, right? That's the first rule. Then the government said that 9.3 I will levy means whatever is given as levy under 9.1, that itself I will continue, but instead of some category which I will specify through notification, on these the tax will be paid by the recipient. So this is called as reverse charge. So 9.3 is the section for reverse charge. 9.3 क्या बताता है? Again English to Hindi. 9.1 बताता है कि सप्लायर को टैक्स पे करना है. 9.3 बताएगा आपको कि जो मैं नोटिफिकेशन दूंगा फॉर सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स के लिए एक अलग नोटिफिकेशन दूंगा और सर्विसेज के लिए अलग नोटिफिकेशन दूंगा, उसमें बताऊंगा कि जो रिसीवर है, रिसीवर ऑफ द गुड्स या रिसीवर ऑफ सर्विसेज, वो जीएसटी भरेंगे और सप्लायर नहीं भरेगा. ओनली ऑन दोस कैटेगरीज, हर कैटेगरी पे नहीं. ठीक है. सो wherever the receiver has to pay will be notified, and in that case, supplier need not pay the tax. How is this given? It is given through two notifications. One is section notification number 4 of 2017. This notification number 4 of 2017 is applicable for reverse charge on goods, which means there are some goods like tendu leaves, some basic agriculture products, tobacco products on which government wants to collect tax, but the farmer will not pay. So the person who's buying goods from the farmer has to pay to the farmer the value of the goods, and the taxes on it will not be paid or collected by the supplier. It will be paid by the receiver. So if I am buying these products, specified products from the, say tobacco products, which is under reverse charge under notification number 4 2017. So if I'm buying that, then I will have to pay tax on that to the government, right? That is for goods. Then for goods, whatever we will not discuss further on goods, because goods, reverse charge on goods is not there in your syllabus. Reverse charge on goods, that notification will be applicable to you at the next level, final level. Okay. And there is another notification for services, which is very important. Notification number 13 of 2017. So services reverse charge is given under which notification? Notification number 13 of 2017, central tax rate, right? And in case of services, it is given saying that these services, if you're providing Baba, then take reverse charge and you have to pay GST on it. Okay. Then you have 9 subsection 4. So 9 subsection 3 is on reverse charge, and 9 subsection 4 is also reverse charge, but specialized reverse charge. What does it say? The government may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, specify a class of registered person. Okay, there is a special mention of a class of registered person. It says that the government may, on recommendation of the council by notification, again specify a class of registered person who shall, in respect of supply of specified category of good. So there should be a class of registered person and class of specified category of goods are both received from an unregistered supplier. Very, very important. So here you find the word unregistered supplier. Here you don't find that word unregistered supplier. In 9th, to buy from anybody, whether he's registered or no, you have to pay reverse charge. But in 9.4, if you buy it only from an unregistered supplier, pay the tax on reverse charge basis as the recipient of such supply of goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax, which means what? All the liability will, all the burden of the supplier will pass on to the receiver. So 9.3, we understood that they will give a notification, and if my services fall under this, I don't have to pay, the receiver will pay it. Okay. Luckily, chartered accountant services are not there in that, but lawyer services, advocate services are there, which means if a lawyer, an advocate, more specifically, if an advocate charges some charges to you, he will not collect GST. You are the buyer who is taking legal services from him. You have to pay GST on that. Okay. Then 9.4 says that if you are buying something from an unregistered person, 9.3 never spoke about registered or unregistered. That doesn't matter. But 9.4 specifically says that if you're buying something from an unregistered person, then you have to pay GST on it. Now, on what is this taxable? It is taxable on specified category of person and on specified category of goods. So 9.4 is levy tax, and 9.4, the levy under this tax applies only in case of two things: class of registered person, because they've said specifically we will specify the class of registered person, and in respect of supply of specified categories of goods. So class of person and categories of goods will be given in the notification. If you're falling under that, then you have to pay GST under reverse charge. So what is covered under 9.4? 9.4 covers when a buyer, the construction company or a joint developer is buying a kind of any right from the landowner. Okay, there are specific rights he buys from the landowner. On that, he has to pay GST under reverse charge. Okay. So that is 9.4. 9.3 is notification number 13 of 2017. We'll understand that notification line by line and understand. Okay. Now, what are the rates of tax? There are different rates of tax. Now, before understanding the rates of tax, let us understand again what is forward charge and what is reverse charge. Supplier of goods, he is supplying goods. He is supplying goods to the buyer. So here he is a seller, and here he is a buyer. Buyer is the receiver of goods. So seller and buyer. Seller is supplying goods, right? That's why we see here that there is a movement of goods or services. For this, what he'll pay? He'll pay the price, right? He'll pay the price. But when he's giving an invoice, he will not only give invoice for the value of the goods, he will also add the GST component. So when he is adding the GST, it is paid by whom? It is paid by the receiver to the supplier. Now, receiver gives it to the supplier. Now, that tax amount, what will the supplier do? He will pay it to the government, right? So here he is primarily responsible for paying the amount to the government. The supplier is paying to the government, right? This is the normal GST process wherein supplier supplying the goods collects the tax from the receiver and pays it to the government. So this is normal charge. This is called as forward charge because the person who is selling it is collecting taxes. It's a forward charge. Contrast this with reverse charge. In reverse charge, the supplier is supplying goods first, fine. Receiver is paying only the price of the goods. Now, supplier is not charging GST because he's not supposed to charge GST. In this case, supplier supplies goods, receives the payment for the price, and tax is paid by the receiver to the government. So the receiver pays the taxes to the government is called as reverse charge. Clear? As per 9.3, recipient is the buyer or customer. It could be anybody. It will generally be the recipient. Is the recipient is paid by the supplier. Tax is at least collected by the supplier. Ultimately, it is borne by the buyer. That is correct, Ms. Goma. But ultimately, now if somebody defaults, whom will the government catch, or whose responsibility it is to pay to the government? It is the suppliers. Ultimately, customer will pay it, but the agency who collects is the supplier itself. Sir, one question arises that if alcoholic liquor is not yet charged in GST because it's human consumption product, then why the other food materials come in the purview of GST? Even liquor should also be charged GST. Yes, it should be charged, but there is a political reason, because every state wants to have a higher collection of tax so that they can their own other activities. That's why they've said that alcoholic liquor is a major consumption product, and I am collecting, each state is saying that we are collecting a lot of taxes in that, major collection of our taxes in that. So if we give off to GST, then we will not have retaining our own collection mechanism. So we want to retain it. So they've decided that, okay, all states, you collect the GST on alcoholic liquor and retain with you. You don't have to fall under GST. Now, Darshan, your question is, but the buyer should be a registered person. Who are registered persons, sir? The buyer need not be a registered person. So if I am not supplying anything, but I am taking services of a service on which I have to pay reverse charge, then even though if I'm not a registered person for the supplier, but I have to register for the purpose of paying tax as a recipient, register and pay it. Okay. So the receiver will have to register and pay GST on a reverse charge basis, even if he's not registered. If he's registered, fine. But if he's not registered and he's taking any of those services on which GST will be filed, will be there, then he will have to register and pay the GST on that. Under reverse charge, the buyer pays price to the seller and tax to the government. Correct. Exactly right. Okay, so this is how we understood forward charge and reverse charge. Clear with reverse charge? In reverse charge, the receiver pays it. In forward charge, the supplier pays it. What if both supplier and receiver are not registered? Still, receiver has to pay it. So in 9.3, we will see a notification 13 of 2017, which says that these services are provided by somebody. Like my favorite example or favorite pick in that notification is legal services. Legal services provided by an advocate. So if a business is there and it is not registered, okay, because why it's not registered? Because its turnover is below the threshold limit. And if it avails the services of a lawyer, then it will have to compulsory register. Okay, so if you're taking services of a lawyer, you will have to register and pay taxes on a reverse charge. Okay. So if recipient is not registered, then he will have to register and pay it if he's falling under this notification of reverse charge. So this is the important aspect. Any questions on this before we go? PPT is not clearly visible. There is no such complaints received, Mr. Sushil. Just see, because PPT is clearly visible to everybody over here. Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll proceed further. What are the rates of GST? So there are various rates of GST. One is 0% is also one rate. So apart from exemption, we have the rate notification. That is the notification number 11 for services and notification number 1 for goods. It says that what is the rate for the goods or the services. There are some products on which the rate is 0%. And there is no separate notification for exemption also. So both the ways there could be exempted by either giving rate as 0% or fitting it under a exemption notification. What are the exemption notification? There is a notification which says that the following services will be exempted. So that's the exemption notification. Okay. So the rates, coming back to rates, there are 7 rates under GST: 0%, 0.125%, which means the rate will become 0.125, which means it will become double of it. So here, whatever I'm saying is half of the rate. 0.125%, 1.5%, which is equivalent to 3%. So on gold and silver, the rate is 1.5%, 2.5%. Most of the food products and other daily essentials come under this 2.5 plus 2.5, 5%, 6 plus 6, 12% on hotel accommodation and some pharmaceutical products. Major of the products is covered under 9%, which is 9 plus 9, 18%, and 14% is on luxury products. Okay. GST is, this is again reiteration of what we have discussed. GST is levied on intrastate supplies of goods or services are both. Similar provisions will be in each state. So CGST is levied on all intrastate supplies of goods or services. Whatever is there under the CGST law, same to same will be there under the state GST law also. And they will give the same notifications for the rate and things like that. So whatever applies to the CGST Act will apply to the SGST Act also. When we say 9%, it means 9 plus 9, 12, 18%. Then on interstate supplies, what is levied? IGST is levied. The rate under IGST will be what? Total of CGST and SGST. Okay. So IGST rate will be total of CGST and SGST. So on intrastate supply, what is levied? IGST is levied on the transaction value as determined under Section 15, right? So IGST is levied on interstate supplies, and it is determined on what value? Value as determined in Section 15 of the CGST Act. So IGST is basically a summation of CGST and SGST. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption, we know, is outside the purview of GST. CGST and IGST is not levied on the following 5 products and would be levied at a later point of time, which is petroleum crude, diesel, petrol, air turbine fuel, and natural gas. Okay. Any more doubts here? Is LPG gas exempted? No, LPG is not exempted. Natural gas, they said, which is not a LPG gas. Okay, if there are no questions, let's proceed. Okay. So reverse charge, again, 9.1 is the levy provision. Then 9.2 says on 5 petroleum products, no GST. Then reverse charge could be of 2 types. One is 9.3, other one is 9.4. 9.3 is supply of specified category of goods or services, which means what? There will be a notification which will specifically tell that on these services, you have to pay reverse charge. That's when you will pay it. So 9.3 is on supply of specified category of goods or services. And 9.4 is reverse charge when it is received from an unregistered person and applicable only for specified class of people, not on everyone. Okay. So 9.4 is very much limited and supplier should be unregistered. But 9.3 is reverse charge, but supplier may be registered or may not be registered. Still, you will have to pay under reverse charge. So the supplier's criteria is not relevant. The category of service is relevant. So if that category of service is sitting under notification, then you have to pay reverse charge. No option saying that, no, I will not pay. Okay. Or supplier is paying, I will not pay. Supplier is registered, I will not pay. You cannot take that excuse because it never doesn't say anything on registration. Which means you have to pay it if that service you are receiving from the supplier. Okay. Now, what are the goods or services which gets covered under reverse charge? Supply of goods which is taxable under reverse charge is cashew nuts, BD wrapper leaves, tobacco leaves, raw tobacco, raw cotton, lotteries by the state government or local authorities, silk yarn or used vehicles. On all of this, it is on the reverse charge, which means receiver will pay it. Now, we will not discuss these goods in detail because this is not there for your exams. This portion of supply of goods taxable under reverse charge is not there for your exams. Then But the other part is supply of services, which is taxable under reverse charge. This is where a supplier provides some services. He will not charge GST. He'll just provide the service. You pay me the money for the service with TDS, without TDS, whatever. But on this, I will not pay GST. Receiver, you are receiving service from me. You have to pay GST under reverse charge, right? Now, what is this reverse charge? It is given under notification number 13 of 2017, dated 28th June 2017, which means when the GST law came, before this itself, this notification had come in and they said that you have to pay GST on this. Now, who is that? Who has to pay is given in this notification number 13 of 2017. Now, let's open this. Okay, I'll share a new screen. Yeah. Notification number 13 of 2017 CTR, dated. CTR means central tax, R means rate. So anything related to rate, when the government notifies, then it will be a different series. So notification number 13 of 2017 CT will mean notification number is 13 of 2017 and it is a central tax not related to rate. So not related to rate would be mean what? Other procedural aspects will be given in those notifications, right? Some power has to be given to some authority that will be given through normal notifications. They are called as central tax notification, not rate notification. If it is central tax within bracket rate, it means it's a rate notification. Okay. Now, I have not given you in the same serial number what is there in the exact notification, because what is relevant and what is important for us, we have to understand. So I've gone in the serial number of importancy. So first serial number is 2, which says that services provided by an individual advocate. Okay. If there is any services provided by an individual advocate, then or including a senior advocate. So it should be an individual advocate, including a senior advocate or a firm of advocates by way of legal services. Okay. So any legal services provided by an advocate is to be paid by whom is what we will decide here. So this notification says category of supply of service, then category of supply, who is the supplier and who is the receiver. Okay. So now you have to understand this very carefully, because reverse charge, I'm sure this will be a sure shot question, because GST mein the crux is to understand this reverse charge itself. So you can expect some question on this. So be very careful, saying that there will be some small difference between some terms, right? So any doubt you have, please ask, so that even the smallest of doubt will be relevant for you in your exams. So understand this very clearly. What am I saying? The first category of service, which is under reverse charges, services provided by an individual advocate, including a senior advocate or a firm of advocates, by way of any legal services, directly or indirectly. Now, what does legal service means? Legal service means any services provided in relation to advice, consultancy, or assistance in any branch of law. So a lawyer can provide service in any branch of law. So any kind of this service which you're receiving from a lawyer, providing assistance in any branch of law in any manner, and includes representation services before any court. So lawyer goes before a court. So that services also, then any kind of a legal services, any services provided in relation to advice, consultancy, or assistance, or representation matters, all of that is covered under legal services. So these legal services, if it's provided by an advocate, who should be the supplier? An individual advocate, including a senior advocate or a firm of advocates. Firm includes a LLP. So this is given in the explanation of this notification. Firm does not mean only partnership firm. Firm partnership includes a partnership firm and a limited liability partnership firm. So firm or a LLP or an individual advocate or a senior advocate providing services has to be paid by the recipient. Who is the recipient? any business entity. So an individual taking services from a lawyer, will it be liable to GST? No, because here it says that any business entity itself. So any business entity located in a taxable territory, which means within India, if he is located, then he will have to pay. If he is an outsider, then no reverse charge. Okay. So business entity located in India receiving services from an advocate, the business entity has to pay GST on it. Okay. Even a sole proprietor can be a recipient of legal services under RCM. Yes, a sole proprietor can be a recipient. So if he is a business entity, then if he's taking any services of a legal consultant, a lawyer, then he has to pay GST under reverse charge. Okay. Then the next category of services. Now, first, if you have understood lawyer, if you have any queries, then you tell me, because all the other services will be easy to understand if you understand for this first lawyer services or advocate services. Any doubts on this reverse charge on advocate services? Is this include service rendered by company secretary? Advocate is an advocate, basically a lawyer who has written his legal law exams and who's got certificate or permission from the bar council. Only he can practice law, so he is an advocate. So services supplied by an advocate and received by a business will be liable to RCM. And it doesn't, so it's only a lawyer or advocate, so it is not a company secretary, because they specifically use the word advocate. So only advocate is covered. In case where a foreign company is taking services of an advocate, normal GST process will be applicable and not RCM. In that case, right, correct. In that case, it will not cover RCM because it says only a business entity located in a taxable territory. So in that case, will the lawyer pay GST? No, lawyer also will not pay GST, because it could be lawyer or any services provided which is export of services, then GST is not applicable. So that is the point one we discussed on first instance, saying that export of services or export of goods is not liable to GST. Okay. Okay. Please summarize advocate point in Hindi. Great. तो जब भी कोई एडवोकेट सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता है, किसको? किसी बिजनेस एंटिटी को. बिजनेस एंटिटी का मतलब क्या हो गया? जो बिजनेस करते हैं, जीएसटी में रजिस्टर्ड है या नहीं है वो नहीं कहा है. बिजनेस एंटिटी को कुछ सर्विस आप प्रोवाइड करते हो एज अ एडवोकेट. ठीक है. क्या सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता हूं मैं? कुछ भी लीगल सर्विस इन रिलेशन टू एडवाइस देता हूं, कंसल्टिंग देता हूं, कोर्ट में जाके आपकी पेशगी करता हूं, आपके लिए मैं लड़ता हूं, मतलब आई एम रिप्रेजेंटेटिंग यू. ठीक है. अब ये सब सर्विस जो भी लॉयर प्रोवाइड करते हैं, ठीक है, तो फिर इसके ऊपर चार्ज जीएसटी कौन भरेगा? जो बिजनेस कंपनी है, बिजनेस जो है जो मेरे से सर्विस ले रहा है, वो जीएसटी पे जमा करेंगे. ठीक है. नाउ ये सर्विस प्रोवाइडर कौन हो सकते हैं? ये इंडिविजुअल हो सकते हैं, ये फर्म हो सकते हैं, या सीनियर एडवोकेट हो सकते हैं. ये तीनों से जो भी सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हैं उसका जीएसटी रिसीवर पे करेगा. मतलब क्या हुआ? जब मैं लॉयर हूं और लॉयर में बिल देता हूं, तो मैं बिल सिर्फ आपके कंसल्टिंग के लिए मैंने 1 लाख चार्ज किया तो 1 लाख का पे करूंगा, चार्ज करूंगा. उसके ऊपर जीएसटी कुछ भी नहीं लिखूंगा, क्योंकि मैं आपसे जीएसटी नहीं कलेक्ट कर सकता हूँ. कौन पे करेगा फिर इसके ऊपर जीएसटी? जो रिसीवर है वो रिसीवर पे करेगा. ठीक है. What if a company provides legal services? A company cannot provide legal services because, like how we have restrictions under Chartered Accountancy Act, Company Secretary Act. Similarly, Bar Council also has a restriction saying that the practitioners practicing chartered accountants, practicing lawyers cannot form a company. They have to either be a proprietorship or a partnership firm or a LLP. They cannot be a private limited. Sir, who receives services have to pay tax? Correct. Who receives services have to pay tax. Why only advocates get this exemption, sir? Chartered accountants are charged to pay GST for these services. Why advocates now? Because they tried to bring this concept of reverse charge not under the GST law. It was there also under the service tax law. Okay, so GST law is just kind of repeating what service tax law, or I would say service tax law prepared the GST law in beginning itself. So service tax law said, okay, from 1st January 2016, we will bring in reverse charge on the following services. They said that all they said that we'll bring GST first on everybody, right? They said that everybody will have to pay GST. So lawyers also had to pay GST. There was no kind of reverse charge when the service tax had come in. But then lawyers said that we will not pay GST. Then they said if lawyers don't pay GST, they don't pay the service tax, there'll be a huge loss because there are so many lawyers and they provide so many services. Now, what shall we do? We cannot give exemption, right? There's so many other people who are asking exemption, saying that agriculture products exemption, okay, we'll give. But if a lawyer asks for exemption, we cannot give. So we can't give exemption and we cannot collect charges from the lawyers. Because when they started levying charges on the lawyers, they went on strike. There was a national-wide strike for a couple of days and they said we will not pay taxes. They said, okay, fine, but government cannot lose the revenue. That's when they said that, okay, on lawyer services, if we start collecting from these lawyers, they will go on strike. So both मुश्किल है इन lawyers से collect करना, लेकिन leave it off also is very difficult. We can't leave it off. What do we do? So we said, okay, boss, we'll bring in reverse charge. You are a business. You are taking services from the lawyer. Come on, you pay GST on it, or you pay service tax on it. So they found a method that, okay, there should not be a loss and there should not be strikes also in the country. So they said, okay, when you take any services from an advocate or a lawyer, you are a business person, you pay reverse charge service tax on it, and that is continuing under GST also. That, okay, company secretary, chartered accountants are there, they are not complaining, they are not going on strike, no problem, Baba, they will pay GST for me. But if it is a lawyer, I cannot touch him. If I touch him, he will go on strike. So don't collect GST on lawyers, pay it under reverse charge basis. Okay. Services taken by individual personal for personal purpose by lawyer, then will GST be payable? No, it will not be payable. When what? A married person is taking services of a lawyer for his divorce case, he has to appoint a lawyer. So when he provides divorce, he's for his personal use. So in that case, there will not be any GST. So only if a business person is taking services of a advocate, then it is liable to GST. How they will check if such a business liable under RCM has paid tax? So they have their business accounts, right? They will have their balance sheet. So it is a self-assessment basis. So GST is a self-assessed law. So when you file your returns, you have to collate all your sales, all your purchases. You will have to assess it. So there will not be a GST officer or an inspector coming and sitting at your place every time and saying that no, pay GST or no, don't pay GST. It is a self-assessment regime wherein you will have to decide whether it's liable or no. So you will be the best judge for yourself. You are doing business. So you decide yourself is what the government said. And they said that you will file a self-assessed return. So when I file the return, I have to legally and correctly declare it. Sir, what if a business doesn't do correctly? That's why you are chartered accountants. So we are chartered accountants are deeply involved in business transactions, right? Any businesses, whenever they do filing, they can do by their own, but they want to be sure that it is done correctly. That's why they engage us, the chartered accountants. That's where our value is there, that we do the correct assessment and give it to them, right? So we do the correct checking of the transactions for the month and give them the calculations and say that this is the GST what you have to pay. So see the importance. The businesses cannot run in remote or in isolation without professionals. That's the value of our professions, that we give them accurate. So our value should increase by giving them correct and more detailed analysis, so that whenever a tax officer comes and he does any kind of assessment, We have to do the first assessment because the client files the GST returns. He is doing an assessment of his own, and we professionals assist him, right? So we have to assist him by giving him a complete knowledge and saying that this is a transaction on which GST is payable on the reverse charge, you pay it. So the client does the assessment. The primary responsibility is of the supplier itself. So we are helping the supplier to calculate the GST. He has to pay the GST on reverse charge also. Okay. So what happens if he doesn't pay, sir? If he doesn't pay, there is something called as assessment. There is something called as an audit. Lot of things are there wherein the government will get to know that he is not paid GST, and they will collect from him the GST on reverse charge, collected with the value of GST, what he has to pay plus interest he has to pay and penalty he has to pay. And other aspect is the credit of this also he will not get. Today, if he pays in his return the reverse charge, he will pay this extra tax and he will claim the credit also. How will he claim the credit? By paying it. So once he pays the GST, he'll get the credit of it, right? If a supplier would have charged, like an advocate, if he's providing service to me, had it been a normal course, he will collect GST and I will pay GST value to him and I will get the credit for him, okay, get the credit out of that bill, right? So then if he is not paying it and if I am paying it, ultimately government is getting the revenue. So why should I not get the credit? So on reverse charge also, once you pay, you get the credit. So then what is the fun, sir? No, there is some cases, some businesses where they cannot claim the credit. So there they have to pay GST to the government. It becomes a cost to them. There they will not get the credit. So you cannot say that payment and claiming credit is there, so it is getting offset, I will not pay. No, the procedure has to be followed that you have to pay GST and claim credit for it. Okay. So if a doctor charges GST on his services, then he will pay GST to the government, not his patient. But in case of a lawyer service, his clients will pay GST to the government. Correct. But understand there is a basic problem in your question, because on doctor, there is no GST. This is exempted. So when you see exemption, you'll see that healthcare services is exempted. So on healthcare services, no GST. A doctor will not charge GST to you. Neither you have to pay under reverse charge because healthcare services are exempted. Clear, Ms. Bhumika? Please let me know. Mr. Ishan is asking, but sir, if an advocate or receiver pay GST, the tax amount will be the same. So what is the harm to advocate to pay it? So you have to ask this to an advocate. Like the advocate is only an example. Just don't harp on me on advocate. Apart from advocate, there are other services also. A goods transport agency, right? Then there are a lot of other services we'll see in this notification. All of them you cannot say, but I'm giving you an example of advocate because it's easy to understand. Okay. So apart from advocate, a goods transport agency, services of a sponsorship, there are various services wherein government will not able to identify who's the supplier, but a receiver is identifiable. That's why the liability is moved from the supplier to a receiver in such cases. Clear? Then what are the services on which reverse charge is payable? You have to also see this category because in some cases it said business entity, some cases it is said a corporate, some cases it said a registered person. So receiver, you have to clearly keep in mind what kind of services, who has to pay. So in case of an advocate, business entity. In case of a service of arbitral tribunal, business entity. Then we'll see in case of a GTA, it is not business entity, it is a taxable person. So that you have to remember it very clearly, the nature of service and the recipient both. So you cannot say that, okay, I know this list of what all reverse charges there, it is always business entity. No, it will not always be business entity. It depends on service to service. So in case of advocate service, it is business entity. In next case, it is an arbitral tribunal. So when an arbitration takes place, you appoint a arbitral tribunal. So the arbitral tribunal providing services to a business entity, then also reverse charge, which means what? Arbitral tribunal providing for non-business entity for personal use, on that no reverse charge. Okay. Then service provided by way of sponsorship to any body corporate or partnership firm. So sponsorship provided by any person to any body corporate or partnership firm located in a taxable territory. Then who has to pay RCM? This body corporate or a partnership firm has to pay RCM. This means what? This is very, very critical. Who is giving sponsorship? A body corporate is giving sponsorship to a sponsoring event. Like say, I am sponsoring. Generally, when you see sponsorship, you will say this IPL. So I am sponsoring the players. Is it actually sponsorship? If it is sponsorship, then I will pay, right? And I am the receiver of service because my service, my brand is getting marketed. Pepsi pays sponsorship, right? So when Pepsi pays sponsorship to any person, this person who is collecting the sponsorship will not pay GST. Pepsi will pay GST under reverse charge on this. Okay. So in GST on room charges of hospital also exempted. Yes, room charges also exempted, but now they have come up saying that the exemption will apply up to some limit. If the room rate is higher, say if it is more than 7,500 or 10,000, then the hospital will have to pay GST. But up till that, it is exempted. But the recipient of service are players. No, recipient of service are not players. The recipient of service is the company because companies' products are getting marketed. The money goes to the players through the channel of the sponsorship. The sponsorship doesn't go to the players directly. You're sponsoring, it goes to the franchisees. The franchisees then pay to the players. So that's a big structure. Take a simple example that you have an event. Okay, you have a college event. A college needs funds, so they will go to the various companies. The companies will say, okay, we'll sponsor you. So this sponsorship goes to the college. College will not pay GST. The company who are paying the sponsorship, they will have to pay the GST under reverse charge. Okay. Sir, who can file GST return? Any person who is registered under GST can file the GST return. So if I am registered, I will have to file. So in case of reverse charge, I am registered under reverse charge. I am the registered person and I have to pay GST. I will file the returns and I will mention that these are the services on which I have to pay GST under reverse charge and I will pay. Please explain arbitral again. Arbitral tribunal means a tribunal who is sitting and kind of arbitrating or settling between two people. Right before going to the court, they will appoint an arbiter generally and say that we have differences, we want to settle it through arbitration process. So if there is an arbitral tribunal, then this arbitral tribunal will settle the case and they will collect some fees. On this fees, GST has to be paid by the person who's paying it. Now, this person, if he's a business entity, then he will pay GST under reverse charge basis. Sir, in sponsorship, LLP is included in recipients? No. In case of sponsorship, it just says body corporate or partnership firm. LLP is not covered. So LLP will not pay GST under reverse charge. It just says body corporate or partnership firm. So a body corporate, if we see the definition, it doesn't say company. They could have simply said company. They've said body corporate. So LLP is also a body corporate, but then indirectly it includes. The first reading, no. But if you analyze the definition of body corporate can include private limited company, public limited company, or any company, and it can include a LLP also. So in my view, body corporate will include a LLP, then it will be liable to GST. If a normal person pays his lawyer, normal person means non-business person. So if a normal business person pays his lawyer fees to the lawyer, then is it exempt under GST? Yes. If it is not for business purposes and it's not a business person who's paying it, then it will be exempted under GST. Okay. Any more doubts till now? Okay. So we'll take a break of around 10 minutes and we'll come back at 7:35. Okay. In the meantime, if you have any doubts, I'll keep this slide as it is. So if you have any doubts, you could ask Apollo. See you at 7:35. Thank you. So good students are asking and reading through it and asking very intelligent questions, I would say. Charushila is asking a question. This means that advocates are not registered under GST. If registered, do they need to fill the details to whom they have provided the services? Yes. So if they are registered for whatever reasons, then they have to file their returns declaring their sales, okay, and saying that tax is not payable on these sales, but tax is payable by the recipient, and they will have to disclose the list of people who their GST number, saying that this is the GST number who has received services from me, and GST is payable under reverse charge by him. So they will have to disclose that. It's a good question. Okay. Sir, subsection 1 tells about CGST leviable on suppliers, and 3 and 4 tells about RCM. Correct. So GST is leviable on suppliers, and not only that, it also says that GST is leviable on the following goods and services. So if you read through, okay, when we read through 9.1 again, you'll see that supplier providing services is liable to GST and it is forward charge under normal cases. So 9.1 also gives the rate notification, and it says that it on these value, on these category of goods, on these category of services, GST is applicable, right? So if there is any services also, it will say that yes, on these services GST is applicable. Now if it says, if it doesn't say RCM, it means it is on the supplier, and if it says RCM, it means on the receiver. So 9.1 says on the supplier. Also it says that what are all the categories, what are all the services on which GST is leviable. Okay. So if it is not for business purpose, then it is exempted from GST in all case in notification 13. Not in all cases, only in lawyer cases that will apply, because the lawyer cases you have an exemption as well, right? Like in this case of services provided by way of sponsorship to any body, corporate or partnership firm, right? If it is not body corporate, then what is it exempted? No. If it is not a body corporate or a partnership, it means the company who's receiving the sponsorship, they will pay GST under forward charge. So reverse charge mechanism doesn't mean it is reverse charge and everybody else is exempted. No. If it is reverse charge, then the person who is mentioned under column C as a recipient, he will pay reverse charge. In all other cases, it will be the supplier who will pay the reverse charge. But when we see exemption services, you'll see that in case of personalized services, in case of legal services taken for personal purposes, there is an exemption. That's the reason it is exempted, not otherwise. Good question. हिंदी में मैंने एक्सप्लेन कर दिया ना, लीगल सर्विसेज जो कर दिया है कि जो लॉयर सर्विसेज है, एडवोकेट सर्विसेज, लॉयर नहीं बोलूंगा बिकॉज लॉयर मींस जिसने लॉ की डिग्री ले ली है, बहुत सारे लॉयर्स है, लेकिन लॉ की डिग्री के बाद जो बार काउंसिल का मेंबरशिप लेते हैं वो एडवोकेट है. सो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन एडवोकेट एंड अ lawyer. A lawyer is a person who's taken who's completed his legal exams, he's completed his LLB, but who is enrolled under the bar council to practice. He is an advocate. So advocate services only is covered. Lawyer services are not covered. So if he's a lawyer and he's not become a bar council, then his services are not under reverse charge. It's services under forward charge itself. Okay. Please understand the difference between advocate and lawyer. So only advocate services are covered here. So because lawyer cannot legally, they're not ethically allowed to practice, that's why they are not mentioned here. So correct word used is advocate. So advocate services के ऊपर क्या हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि रिवर्स चार्ज लगेगा. कहाँ पे लगेगा? बिजनेस एंटिटी को लगेगा. तो मतलब जो काम एंटिटी बिजनेस कर रही है वो जीएसटी पे करेगी. नाउ ये एंटिटी बिजनेस एंटिटी है और जीएसटी में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है, फिर भी रिवर्स चार्ज लगेगा? हाँ लगेगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पे इन्होंने कहा है कि बिजनेस एंटिटी, तो अगर ये मैं अनरजिस्टर्ड हूं, मैं बिजनेस कर रहा हूँ, राइट, आई एम बिजनेस एंटिटी, तो फिर अगर मैं जब भी लॉयर सर्विस लेता हूँ मेरे बिजनेस के लिए, तो मुझे रजिस्टर करके जीएसटी जमा करना पड़ेगा। ठीक है, तो समझ लीजिए कि मैं 5 साल से जीएसटी 5 साल से बिजनेस कर रहा हूँ, रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हूँ। क्यों रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हूँ? क्योंकि मेरा वैल्यू लेस देन 40 lakhs है एंड आई एम नॉट रजिस्टर्ड। अब मैं कोई सी काम के लिए एक लॉयर का सर्विस लेता हूँ, इतने साल से मैंने लॉयर का सर्विस नहीं लिया या किसी भी कैटेगरी की सर्विस नहीं लिया जिसके ऊपर मुझे आरसीएम पे करना पड़ेगा। तो अब मेरे को कुछ काम आ गया और मैं एक एडवोकेट से सर्विस ले रहा हूँ, अब वो मुझे बिल दे दिया, अब मुझे आरसीएम पे करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन मैं रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हूँ। लेकिन आपका सर्विस तो रजिस्टर्ड हो गया कि आप लॉयर से सर्विस ले रहे हो, आपकी लायबिलिटी ट्रिगर हो गई है, तो आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना पड़ेगा। रजिस्ट्रेशन लेके आपको रिवर्स चार्ज पे करना पड़ेगा। बात यहीं पे खत्म नहीं होती है। आप रजिस्टर कर लिए, लॉयर पे कर दिए, क्या आप रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल करोगे? अब कौन कैंसिल करेगा रजिस्ट्रेशन? इफ दो ऑप्शन हो सकते हैं। अगर आप रजिस्ट्रेशन कंटिन्यू करते हो तो फिर आपके जो सर्विसेज या गुड्स आप प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो उसके ऊपर भी आपको जीएसटी पे करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि इतने दिन आप अनरजिस्टर्ड थे। ठीक है, अब से आप रजिस्टर्ड हो गए हो तो आपके सेल्स के ऊपर भी आपको जीएसटी पे करना पड़ेगा। या अदर ऑप्शन है, सेकेंड ऑप्शन है, आप उस जीएसटी को रिवर्स चार्ज पे करके आप उसको कैंसिल कर दो, तो फिर आपको सप्लाई के ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा। ये दो ऑप्शन है। ठीक है, वैसे हम बात कर रहे थे आर्बिट्रल ट्राइब्यूनल का भी। आर्बिट्रल ट्राइब्यूनल वो होते हैं जो दो पार्टी के बीच अग्रीमेंट होता है कि हमारे बीच में कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिस ब्रीच हो जाए तो हम आर्बिट्रल को रेफर करेंगे, तो आर्बिट्रल ट्राइब्यूनल के पास जाते हैं। ठीक है, और थर्ड इंस्टेंस है स्पॉन्सरशिप। जब स्पॉन्सरशिप पेप्सी किसी कंपनी को स्पॉन्सर करती है, ठीक है, तो जो कंपनी रिसीव करती है उसे पे करना पड़ेगा जीएसटी। जनरली क्या करते हैं, जो कंपनी जो पर्सन है जो पैसे लेता है वो प्रोवाइडर है, जो पैसे देता है वो रिसीवर है, जो स्पॉन्सरशिप पे करते हैं वो रिसीवर है, और जो कंपनी कलेक्ट करती है पैसा उसे जीएसटी चार्ज करना चाहिए। लेकिन जब ये स्पॉन्सरशिप अगर एक बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट में कंपनी भी इंक्लूड हो जाते हैं और एलएलपी भी इंक्लूड हो जाते हैं और पार्टनरशिप फर्म, अगर ये तीन एंटिटी कुछ स्पॉन्सरशिप पे करती है तो ये कंपनी को या पार्टनरशिप को रिवर्स चार्ज पे करना पड़ेगा। ठीक है, Varshi Shetty, what is your question? GST registered CA firm took services from unregistered CA firm. Then is registered CA firm need to pay reverse charge? No, because in any of these reverse charge categories, supplier of service is not a CA firm. Nowhere there is a CA firm. So if an unregistered CA firm supplies services to a CA firm, the liability is on the supplier. Now, in your example, this supplier is unregistered, so he will not charge GST. Have I answered your doubt, Varsha Shetty? Then next question is, sir, category of supplier of service given in this subsection are all are unregistered and all recipients are registered. No, it is not all unregistered. It doesn't say registered or unregistered. They are categorizing the supplier. Supplier, they have not said registered individual advocate or unregistered individual advocate or an individual unregistered person. That is not the criteria. It says any person. So it could be registered or unregistered. The category of unregistered comes under 9.4. As I said, in 9.3, supplier can be registered or unregistered. If he is registered, still he will not pay reverse charge. The liability is on recipient. If I'm unregistered, anyways, I will not pay. Okay, so clearly understand the bifurcation. The reverse charge mechanism, what is mentioned here, is on the recipient. Now, if supplier is registered, will the liability shift to the supplier? No, it will not shift. It will still be on the recipient itself, on the receiver itself, not on the supplier. Okay, going ahead, we understood sponsorship services. Now understand the services of government services. Services supplied by the central government, state government, union territory, or local authority to a business entity, excluding renting of immovable property. Services provided by way of Department of Post, by way of speed post, express parcel post, life insurance, these things. Okay, or services in relation to aircraft or a vessel, or transportation of goods or passengers. So on these four things, reverse charge is not there over here. Okay. Supplier is who? Supplier is central government, state government, union territory. If who is the receiver? If the receiver is a business entity located in a taxable territory. Means if I am a business entity receiving services from the government, right, then I have to pay reverse charge. Now it excludes renting of immobile property, but it will come down below, because for renting of immobile property, the criteria is little different. So renting of immobile property is excluded from line number 5, but included in line number 5A. Okay. So renting of immobile property per se is not excluded. It is given a separate categorization. But what is excluded from reverse charges? Department of Post. So if you go to a post office, you give a speed post. That's a government. So government is providing you a service. So we know that if a business entity is there, then will they pay reverse charge? No, because on speed post, express parcel post, life insurance, and agency services, there is no reverse charge, it is forward charge. So when you give a speed post, they will collect GST on it and pay taxes on it. No reverse charge in that case, it will be on forward charge. Right? What are the services? Services related to aircraft or a vessel inside or outside the presence of a port or an airport, which means what? When you go to airport, the flight ticket will have some port charges, right? Everything is included in the airport ticket itself. On that, GST will be collected by the airport authority itself, right? Also, transportation of goods or passengers. Goods or transportation of passengers, on that also forward charge. Except these four services, any other services provided by the government, it is under reverse charge and payable by whom? Payable by a business entity. Okay. Then services supplied by the central government, state government, union territory, or local authority by way of renting of immobile property to a person registered under GST. When the services are provided by central government, state government, or union territory, and it will be under reverse charge by whom? It will be only by a person registered under GST. See, that's the difference. Here it was same central government, state government, but here it was business entity. In case of renting, it is person who is registered. So if you are unregistered and if you are paying rent to the government, right, generally it is under reverse charge. But if you are not registered, then you still don't have to pay. You don't have to come register and then pay. If you are already registered, then you pay reverse charge. If you are not registered, then you don't pay reverse charge. Okay. So if one advocate firm provides services to another advocate firm, then also it is exempted. So when we see that exemption, you'll have a clear picture that one advocate firm to another advocate firm is also exempted. Okay. You understood this 5A? Any query on this 5A? If you don't have any queries, I will ask you one question. That renting of immobile property, it says, right? So if government has a housing colony and they're giving me a house to stay, right? So who is the provider? State government. Say state government is having a house and it's giving me a house to stay. And I am registered under GST. Should I pay GST under reverse charge? Yeah, waiting for your answers. Yes, you should pay GST under RCM. Yes, 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 sir. As per subsection 5A. Okay. Need some more answers. Only Darshan till now has given a correct answer. What about others? What do you think? Vishwanath Reddy is also given correct answer. Okay. So understand that before coming under reverse charge, it has to come under 9.1. So 9.1 says it will be chargeable. So if it is chargeable, only then reverse charge. And I had told you in last session also, on residential rent, GST is exempted. So if I am taken a house for my personal residential use, I had stated my example also as residential use itself. So if I have taken for residential use, there is no GST at all. It is exempted. So if it is exempted, then reverse charge will not come. Okay. So don't get carried away with reverse charge provisions. Before reverse charge provisions, you also have to understand, is the service taxable? If it is taxable, then you have to see, is it exempted? If it is taxable, if it is not taxable, no reverse charge. If it is taxable and if it is exempted, right, then also no reverse charge. If it is not exempted, then it will fall here. Then what will fall under this category? Renting of immovable property means shops. So any commercial properties given by the government to businesses and businesses are taking it for commercial purposes, then reverse charge will come. And that too, it will come if the receiver or the shop owner, shopkeeper is registered under GST. Okay. So first you have to see exempted. If it is exempted, then reverse charge will not come. Okay. So residential rent is exempted. So reverse charge will not be applied. Okay. Next, services supplied by a director of a company or a body corporate to a said company or the body corporate. It means if there is a body corporate, if there's a company, services supplied by a director to the company. In that case, who is the supplier? Director of a company or a body corporate. He is supplying services to a company or a body corporate located in a taxable territory. Okay. So director of a company or a body corporate providing services to a company, which means what? A director providing services of, we know that director also is an employee, a managing director is an employee. So if a managing director provides services of his directorships and he collects salary, on that GST will apply? No, because on salary, we know under Schedule 3, employee providing service to the employer is exempted. So what is this then? This is anything other than a salaried director. If it's a non-salaried director, he's collecting consultancy fees, or he is the independent director. He is not involved into day-to-day affairs of the company. He comes only for the board meetings to make decisions, and he collects board sitting charges. There's something called as sitting fees you give for attending the board meeting. On that, reverse charge will apply. Any kind of consultancy you pay, on that reverse charge will apply. But as an employee-employee relationship on salary, reverse charge will not apply. So director, if he's registered under GST, still he will not charge GST. The company has to pay GST under reverse charge. Fine. Then security services. Security services provided by way of supply of security personnel provided to a registered person, provided that nothing contained in this entry shall apply to a department of establishment of central government, local authority, government authority, or a person registered under section 10. So government authority ko, if he's providing services, then no reverse charge, or a person who's registered under section 10. So there is something called as a composite supply, right? Wherein if my turnover is below 1.5 crores, I can play under composite supply. We'll discuss that also. A composition registration is a separate special registration. So if he's under a special registration scheme, then you don't have to pay GST under reverse charge for only security services. Who is the person who's providing? He's a person other than a body corporate, which means if a company is providing security services, then it has to be pay under forward charge. But if it is other than a body corporate, if it is other than a body corporate, if it is not a company or a LLP, if it's a partnership firm, proprietorship firm, if it is providing security services, then it will be under reverse charge. When it will be under reverse charge? If it is to a registered person. right? It doesn't say, it says registered person, similar to this, a person registered under GST Act. It says a registered person. Now that could be a company, a proprietor, anybody who's registered, then they have to pay under reverse charge. Okay. So only already registered person pay RCM. Yeah. So not only already registered, depends on each category. If the category says business person, then even if they are not registered, they will have to register and pay. Adarsh is asking, please explain fifth point again regarding Department of Post. Department of Post, what I'm saying is, if you take any services of a post, it is under forward charge, even though it's a government service. Department Post is under forward charge, so you don't have to pay under reverse charge. But other government services on which this exclusion is not there, on that you have to pay under reverse charge. Okay, security service, we clearly understood that if it's a body corporate, forward charge. If it's not a body corporate, reverse charge, provided I am a registered person. Okay, then supply of services by a GTA. Supply of services by a goods transport agency who has not paid central tax at the rate of 6%, which means the GTA should not have paid 6%. If he pays 6%, then he will pay under forward charge. If not, if he's not charging anything, then I will pay under reverse charge. The supply of service by a goods transport agency who has paid central tax at the rate of 6% in respect of transportation of goods by road to specified recipient. So a goods transport agency is one who transport goods by road. Okay, goods transport agency can be air also, but specifically this GTA is for road transport itself, right? So you give your goods to the lorry recipient, he gives you a consignment note, and then he will carry the goods and issue it, give it to the receiver. So he's a goods transport agency. Don't confuse this with a courier agency. You give couriers also, but courier agency is separate and goods transport agency is separate. Couriers do not come under reverse charge, but goods transport agency comes under reverse charge. Supplier of service by is so and so, that is supplier of service by a GTA who has not paid central tax at the rate of 6% in respect of transportation of goods by road to specified recipients. And the recipient of GTA service is the person who pays or is liable to pay freight for transportation of goods by road in goods carriage located in the taxable territory. Okay, so who is the supplier and who is the receiver? The recipient of GTA. So when I supply goods from Karnataka to Bombay, I am saying that take this goods and give it to Bombay. Now there are two possibilities possible in that case, that I will pay the GTA the freight charges. Okay, for the goods transport, I will pay the freight to him and tell you take it. So if I pay and I tell him to deliver it to the receiver, I am the recipient there. Okay, and if I say no, I don't know if the recipient will pay me or no, so you collect the amount from the recipient itself. So I will deliver the goods, I will tell him the receiver will pay it to you. So if the receiver pays it, in that case, he is the recipient. That's what is the meaning of this clause. It says that recipient of GTA service is the person who pays or is liable to pay freight for transportation of goods by road in goods carriage located in the taxable territory. Fine. If he is the recipient who is paying, it is he is the recipient. If I am paying, I am the recipient. Fine, we understood the recipient. Now, service provider is a goods transport agency, GTA. Recipient will be any of these 7 categories of people. Who are these 7 categories of people? Any factory registered under the governed by the Factories Act. If he's a factory, if he's a society, a cooperative society, okay, or a person registered under the GST Act. Person registered also is covered. A body corporate is also covered. Means a body corporate, if is registered, they're already falling under D. Under E, what are they covering? A body corporate which is not registered under GST, that is also covered. Any partnership firm, that is also covered. Any casual taxable person located in a taxable territory, that you will understand there's a special category of registration called casual taxable person. So if he's a casual taxable person or a normal registered person, both of them will fall under this. So GTA providing services to any of these 7 categories of people is liable to reverse charge. Okay. Then on this GTA, I have a special sheet wherein we'll understand how reverse charge is getting calculated. Just wait for me for 1 minute. Just park this while we complete the other things. Provided that nothing contained in this entry shall apply to services provided to a GTA by way of department or establishment of central government, local authority, government authority. So if they're providing services to these government authorities, then no reverse charge. Services provided by way of renting of motor vehicle designed to carry passengers where the cost of fuel is included in the consideration. This also I will explain through a chart. Okay. Then service provided by a person by way of transportation of FSI, which means a floor space index. When a person provides it to a promoter, then the promoter has to pay reverse charge. So if it is under FSI, which means if I am a owner, a landowner, and I'm providing services to a promoter, promoter will pay under reverse charge. Then any kind of a long-term lease I'm providing, then the long-term lease provider, the promoter will pay reverse charge. Service supplied by an insurance agent. If an insurance agent is providing services to an insurance company, then the insurance company will pay reverse charge. A recovery agent. So banks appoint some recovery agents. So these recovery agents providing services to a banking company, then banking company has to pay reverse charge. Then music composer, photographer, or artist. Okay, if they are providing services to the music company, producer, or the like, then the music company will pay reverse charge. These are simple to understand. In case of an author will providing services to a publisher. Okay, for what? Supply of services by an author by way of transfer or permitting the use or enjoyment of the copyright covered under clause 13 of the Copyright Act relating to original works. Author providing services to publisher, then the publisher has to pay under reverse charge. Then there is something called as a member of an overseeing committee under the RBI providing some services to the Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank will pay. Then direct selling agents providing services to a banking company, a business facilitator, a business correspondent, all of this, the receiver will pay under reverse charge. Then SEBI services, the lender providing any lending of securities under the security SEBI, some scheme is there, wherein a lender and borrower is there, that the lender will not pay, the borrower will pay. Okay. Apart from this, we have said reverse charge everywhere. There is an important reverse charge provision, which is on import of services. On import of services, who will pay? It is not covered under this because on import of service, what do we pay? We pay IGST. So that is given under notification number 10, which says that any service supplied by a person who is located in a non-taxable territory, which means outside India, to any person other than a non-taxable online recipient. Okay, which means that if he is providing to a person located in a non-taxable territory and receiver is a person located in a taxable territory other than non-taxable online recipient. So first, let us understand what is on non-taxable online recipient, which means this example which I gave you on the first day of online this music, right? We had discussed that I will download some music and listen to it. Now, if I am paying, we said that if it is import of services with consideration non-business also, it is taxable. How is it taxable? It is taxable that the supplier providing services to me as a recipient. Okay, on this, I am a non-business person, but I'm paying some consideration. The person who's providing the service, he's called as a online information database access or retrieval services. If he's providing me this services, even if he's outside India, he has to come to India for the purpose of registration, come to India, register and pay GST on it. Okay. So if he comes to India, pays GST, he will pay it. But if I'm a registered person, then I will pay reverse charge. Okay. So we understood on non-taxable online recipient. If I'm a non-taxable online recipient, then the supplier will pay. Apart from this, if I am taking any other services, it's not an online service. Like it's a not an online service that it can get delivered online. It has to be delivered through any other modes, like a lawyer providing services to me. He is not using online modes. He's using offline mode. Email is using, but online means something through the internet itself, something through the app. That is an online provider. providing through email and other things is not online. So if I'm taking any lawyer services outside India, then on the lawyer services, he will not come to India and pay. I will have to pay under reverse charge under this. So that's what it's saying, that any person located in a non-taxable territory. So he is sitting outside India and providing non-taxable services to me, and I am a person located in a taxable territory. Then I will have to pay GST under reverse charge basis. Clear till now? 14th point, sir. 14th point is what? 14th point is GT. 14th point is security services. So security services provided by a security agency to me. If I am registered person, then I will have to pay under reverse charge. If I am not registered, the security service still will pay. Other thing is the security agency. If he is a company, okay, it's a private limited security agency, then it will not come under reverse charge, because the supplier category says that any person other than a body corporate. If it's other than a body corporate, only then I have to pay under reverse charge. If he's not a body corporate, then I have to pay under reverse charge. If he is body corporate, then he will pay under forward charge. Correct? So body GTA will understand with example. Any questions till now on importation of services also? Okay. GST GTA provides goods on common persons and firms, body corporate, etc. Correct. So GTA provides goods to anybody. GST applicability on landowner share in case of JDA project, how landowner has to pay his liability. So in case of landowner share in GDA project, this project, it will be paid by the JDA person itself, not by the landowner. GTA is registered and opts to pay GST under forward charge, then GTA under forward charge mechanism, provided recipient is specified recipient. If GTA is registered and opts to pay GST under forward, correct. So this thing on GTA is, you have to remember this 7 category of people, and if they are opting to pay under forward charge, so goods transport agency has an option to pay under forward charge. So if they are paying under forward charge, then we don't have to pay under reverse charge. So when can they pay under forward charge? They can pay under forward charge when they are claiming input tax credit. So if they want to claim the input tax credit, then you don't have to pay under reverse charge. If they claim input tax credit, then they will charge you 12%. But if they don't claim credit, then you have to pay under 5% itself. So there are two rates for GTA, 6 plus 6, 12%, and 2.5 plus 2.5, 5%. So if the GTA agrees that he will pay under forward charge, then he will pay 12% and he will claim all the input tax credit. But if he's not claiming any input tax credit, then he will not charge any GST. We will have to pay under reverse charge at 5%. Now, who has to pay? If I am the payer, then I will pay. If my customer is the payer, he will pay. Now, we have to see whether we are falling under these 7 categories. If I am a factory registered under the Factories Act, if I am a society registered, if I am a cooperative society, if I'm a person registered under the GST Act, if I'm a body corporate, or if I'm a partnership firm or a casual taxable person, then I have to pay under reverse charge, else no. Okay. So I will share the screen on the reverse charge. So GTA service taxability. How is this determined? It is determined over here. Yeah. So goods transport agency service tax, service liability, service taxability. If the payment of GST at 12% and full ITC is taken. Okay, which means the GTA is charging at 12% and is taking full ITC if it's providing to a registered person, right? If he's providing to a registered person, okay, if he's providing to a registered person, then GST is payable under forward charge by the GTA, right? Because he's charging 12%. And if he's providing to an unregistered person, then if he's providing to only notified person, who are this notified person? This 7 category of people. If he's providing to a notified person, again under forward charge. So if he's providing to any person other than the notified person, then it is exempt. Okay, so payment of GST at 12% and full ITC is taken. Then if he's providing to a registered person fully, if he's providing to unregistered person, then he has to see if it is this 7 category of notified people, then he has to pay under forward charge. So no reverse charge will come here. Only if he's providing to anybody other than this notified person, then it is exempt. Or GTA payment at 5% without ITC, which means he cannot claim ITC and I have to pay under reverse charge. I have to pay under reverse charge. If I am a registered person, then reverse charge will apply and recipient who pays freight is liable to pay GST, which means if I pay, if the consigner or consignee pays, who pays, they have to pay. And if it is to unregistered person, then they have to see if it is notified category of 7 people, then under reverse charge. And if it is to others, it is exempted. Okay, clear with this? This chart gives a complete picture. Okay, so we'll proceed. Who are these 7 category of people? Again, what I mentioned there is I'm mentioning here again. Factory registered under Factories Act, society, cooperative society, any person registered under GST, body corporate, partnership firm, and casual taxable person. So these 7 people you remember. If these 7 people are there, then it is reverse charge always. Then if it belongs to another category, which means individual or unregistered person, then it is exempted. And if it is the 7 category of people, you have 2 options: pay under reverse charge at 5%, okay, or pay under forward charge 12%, which means you what GTA can pay at 12%. So in the goods transport agency, which means I'm transporting goods from one place to another place, I need a special agency, which means it's not a courier guy that will take any kind of goods. Couriers are costly and goods have to be transported in a specified, in my own lorry or a kind of lorries which will have capacity to carry bigger weights, right? So that's why you engage a goods transport agency. So these goods transport agencies collect the goods and deliver it. And there is a special law for them wherein the they take the responsibility of the goods. So a GTA, if you give him goods and if he is transporting the goods, if something is lost, okay, you can catch hold of him because he is responsible for it. But that's not the case in case of a courier agencies. Courier agencies says that it may get damaged, we will transport it to the other person. If it gets damaged, we are not responsible. But GTA takes this responsibility on of the goods also. So when you're giving anything on the GTA, these people collect the goods and give you a consignment note. And the person to whom they will deliver, they will get a copy of the consignment note. So if he's giving you a consignment copy, only then the GTA will deliver to him. Okay. So GTA, this is the case. Now, we understood who will pay. If I am a person who am paying the freight, then I will pay under reverse charge, and not the person who is collecting the goods because he's not paid to it. And other example is if he is paying the GTA charges, then he is the recipient. You have to see whether that fellow is falling under these 7 categories for us to decide whether he is paying under reverse charge. Okay. Okay. So let's take this worksheet and decide who will pay GST. So I'll share you this Excel sheet and answer me. Okay. You can see my Excel sheet, right? Okay. So the first scenario, service provider is a GTA. Consignor is a company. Now, whether it's registered or unregistered, I don't know. It can be registered, it can be unregistered. And consignee, okay, who is a receiver, is a partnership firm. Now, again, registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. Person who's liable to pay freight is a company. Okay. Person who's liable to pay freight is a company. Now, tell me who is liable to pay GST in this scenario. Is it visible now? Okay. The person liable to pay freight is company, and company is falling under one of those 7 categories, whether registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. If it's a company, then they have to pay freight, they have to pay reverse charge. So company is paying freight charges. So we have to decide from the company's perspective. So person liable to pay freight is the company itself. Okay, it's company. So in second instance, the partnership firm, GTA service again, partnership firm is the consignor, whether registered or unregistered. Consignee is a registered dealer, Mr. A. Who is the person liable to pay freight? They have agreed that Mr. A will pay the freight. So if Mr. A pays the freight, who is liable to pay GST? Partnership, not partnership firm, because who is liable to pay GST? The recipient. In this case, recipient is Mr. A. So now you have to decide whether Mr. A falls under those 7 categories. Is he falling under 7 categories? Yes, he's a registered dealer. So he is the person who is liable to pay freight, not the partnership firm. Third instance, GTA is providing services. Partnership firm is a consignor and consignee is registered dealer Mr. A. Person liable to pay firm is partnership firm. Okay. So who is the person liable to pay GST in this case? Exempted. Why is it exempted? Mr. A. How can it be Mr. A? Because Mr. A is not the recipient. So it cannot be Mr. A, right? So that's the reason this example is given. Don't go with 7 categories of people. First, decide who is the recipient. Okay. The person liable to pay freight is the recipient. Now we have known that partnership firm is the person who is liable to pay freight. Then it cannot be Mr. A at all because Mr. A is not the recipient in this case. So Mr. A, most of you who are opting that Mr. A is the answer, it can't be Mr. A because Mr. A is not the recipient. Recipient is partnership firm. So partnership firm is coming under one of those 7 categories. So partnership firm is liable to pay GST. Next example, number 4, cooperative society is the register unregistered and recipient consignee is registered dealer Mr. A. Person liable to pay freight is Mr. A. So in this case, who is liable to pay GST? Correct. Everybody is given a correct answer. 4th one, Mr. A. 5th one, cooperative society providing consignor and consignee is registered dealer Mr. A. Person liable to pay freight is cooperative society. What happens in this case? Cooperative society. That's the correct answer. Sixth one, cooperative. Company A is registered or unregistered. Company B is registered or unregistered. Person liable to pay freight is company B. So the person liable to pay GST will be company B itself. Clear? That is clear. No problem. Seventh one, unregistered dealer A is the consignor and consignee is registered dealer Y. Person liable to pay freight is unregistered dealer A. So who is liable to pay GST in this case? Moving to question number 7. Question number 7, dealer A, dealer Y. Well, how can it be dealer Y? As we had said earlier also, everybody, most of you are saying dealer Y. Few people are saying unregistered dealer A. Whether unregistered dealer is one of the 7 categories, it's not 7 categories. So you are assuming that if it is not dealer A because he's unregistered, it will be on dealer Y. But who is the recipient? Recipient is unregistered dealer A. So the liability cannot automatically pass on to the consignee because he's not the recipient. Who is the recipient has to pay it. Now, unregistered dealer Y, he's not the recipient, so he will not pay. Liability will be on Y. Y will say, I am not registered, so I will not pay. So what will happen then? What will happen? It will be exempt supply. It will become an exempt supply because if it is under these 7 categories, fine. If it is not under those 7 categories, the liability doesn't get shifted from supplier, from the consignor to the consignee. It will just go away. And you have to decide who is the person who is paying. In this case, the person paying is unregistered dealer A, who is unregistered, so it becomes exempt supply. Okay. Next scenario, unregistered dealer A, same unregistered dealer Y. Person liable to pay freight is registered dealer Y. In this case, who is the person liable to pay GST? Right. Registered dealer Y. Unregistered dealer A, unregistered dealer B. Person liable to pay freight is unregistered dealer B. Who is the person liable to pay GST in this case? Very good. Everybody's become smart. Now we have given a correct answer that it is an exempt supply. Point number 10, GTA is unregistered. Okay. It is providing services to company C who is registered or unregistered, and consignee is partnership firm. And person liable to pay freight is company C. Then who will pay? Who is liable to pay GST? Company C. But GTA is unregistered. Are you sure with your answers? Everybody's sure that yes, it is company C itself. Yes. Whether GTA is registered or unregistered, it doesn't matter to me. Because in his consignment note, he's not charged GST. It means I have to pay under reverse charge itself. If he would have charged, then he would have paid. Okay. GTA unregistered, unregistered dealer A, registered dealer Y. The recipient, the person liable to pay freight is registered dealer Y. In this case, who is the person liable to pay GST? 10th one exempt. No, 10th one is not exempt because company C is one of the 7 categories of people, so they have to pay GST. It doesn't get exempted. 11th one, registered dealer Y, correct. 12th one, unregistered dealer A, consignee is unregistered dealer Y, and person liable to pay freight is unregistered dealer B. So what happens in this case? Twelfth one, exempt supply, correct. So 12th one is an exempt supply. Clear with this? So you have to decide basically on who is the recipient. Recipient is a person who pays to the freight, and if he is one of those 7 categories, pay RCM. If he's not under those 7 categories, don't pay RCM. Clear? So this is GTA and these are the 7 categories. Okay, so next class we'll discuss on renting of motor vehicles, including cost of the fuel with a flowchart. This is also very interesting. And then we'll discuss on other categories. Okay. If there are no more queries, we can wrap up. Please let me know if there are any queries here. Sure, I'll share this. Don't worry. Today I'll share the presentation. Hope you've got the previous session's presentations because that were already uploaded while we were discussing in the last session. Five AA section is not covered. In the Word document, I have covered 5AA also. 5AA is new thing. So I think 5AA is not covered for you. Yes, Adarsh, you're right. 5AA is not covered. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll meet on Friday and we'll complete this. Thank you very much.